I'm sorry that you have an adult son and you want me to tell you that you're a spring chicken. I don't know what to tell you, buddy.
Thanks, son.
You had kids early.
That's the
I had kids early.
Well,
So I'm still young.
I heard you're still
heard the-
normal aged.
I heard the implication there, Dave. I had kids young, so I'm still young. I heard that.
You're still jumping out of your high altitude, parachuting and all that. You're basically Tom Cruise from Mission Impossible.
This is all the stuff.
He's only like
this is what I was fishing.
He's only like 60. Right?
He's only like 60. You're just as young and spry as Tom Cruise. No doubt about it.
I mean, this is exactly what I was fishing for, guys. This is good hit. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay. I trust that Ian's going to use all that content in the previous 5 minutes. I mean, seriously, it'd be great intro content. But anyway, I told him I'd do a 3, 2, 1 countdown. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Goat Rodeo podcast. I'm Garrett Smith, your regular co-host, alongside Simon Kuhn and Dave Cottle. We're all from Reveal Technology, where we are redefining how tactical warfighters use technology in the 21st century. We talk about all kinds of stuff on this podcast, everything from geopolitics to venture deal book to Capitol Hill stuff to government relations to defense acquisitions, go-to-market, and everything in between from the startup perspective, and hope that, whatever we're covering here means something at some level to you, at least at some point in the podcast. So anyway, if you have notes for us, send them. If you know the executives, the marketing executives at Rip It, and you know how to get us plugged in there, send that as well. We're very happy to take on that sponsorship, as well as maybe a few other products that we've, pitched pro bono here on this podcast. But anyway, Rip It is at the top of the list. Okay, couple of big items driving geopolitics in the last week. Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, I think that's what it's called. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. If it's not an organization, it's association or it's something. This is convened by the Chinese Communist Party in China and seeks to bring in folks who are typically seen as adversaries of or not fully aligned with the U.S.-led kind of Western global order. And this time around, it's of unique note because Prime Minister Modi and President Vladimir Putin of India and Russia, respectively, were in attendance. And the big question mark was, oh my God, is India aligning itself with kind of this, whatever we want to call it, the revisionist alignment of autocratic states or whatever. Simon has opinions here. I'm going to say this is diplomatic posturing and really isn't news because India has a long tradition of being non-aligned from earliest days of the Cold War all the way through to the present. So I see this as a diplomatic virtue signaling hedge from the Modi government. And really, in the long run, I don't think it means much at all. But Simon, please tell me I'm wrong.
Okay, so here's why you're wrong. First, China and India are at war and have been at war for a long time. When Modi started his term, he would not be photographed with the leader of China. They could not look at each other. And for those that don't track it very closely, the Kashmir border region continues to be in a relative state of conflict. They don't carry weapons. They get into fist fights and brawls and melee weapon fights on this contested border all the time and have for a long time.
They throw each other off cliffs. I remember I've seen the news stories.
So if nothing else, there is a significant element to there being a warmth between those two leaders, easily as significant as Trump and Putin meeting in Alaska with a plane flying overhead, which, we're myopic, so we care more about what the American leader does. However,
I'm going to pile on. Hold on. I'm going to pile on. China is also historically, outside of the United States and some periods of our international engagement, the biggest backer of Pakistan, which is a strategic adversary of India. So I'm supporting your argument.
So yeah, it's something worth watching. And then also India, like everyone else, is modernizing their military, and there's going to be a huge financial push behind whatever they decide to buy. And they have been, as of late, disaffected with their Russian equipment. It did not serve very well recently against Pakistan. There's important signals there to be paying attention to. I think more important signals than Putin, Trump, which was very much more of the same tenor as all past relationships. You just had some extra optics. This one I think is an unusual, and that their willingness to be seen publicly together, smiling and holding hands and group hugging,
Were they
Does
actually
not.
holding hands and hugging?
Yes.
I didn't see these
It's the
images.
three of them. It's Putin and Modi holding hands walking, and they walk up to Z, and then they all wrap their arms around each other and laugh. Now they're probably speaking in English, which is the funny part they don't tell you, right? Like odds are if they're using a shared language, it's probably English. But it's a stark comparison to our world leader with other world leaders right now.
The thought of them giggling at each other in Hindi actually really entertains me.
It's
I actually hope
exactly
that
what it is. It's very funny. You should look it up because it is this incredible three-way group hug.
I think that I think you're right, by the way, that this is worth paying attention to. I think it's just reinforcing the idea that India is not going to sell its affiliation cheaply. I think this is an important element in the geostrategic kind of chessboard, that this is a serious, giant geopolitical game afoot at some level, and the U.S. needs to get serious about continuing to invest in the India relationship. And I think, some of the stuff in the Trump administration about with tariffs and some of the other kind of stuff that hit India not quite as positively as many in the analyst set would have preferred. I think it's putting at risk now a 20-year program that spans Democratic and Republican administrations of building bridges with India, which we always saw in the geostrategic context as an important population-based, democratic-leaning, if not fully democratic, counterweight to China. And I think it's up for contest, right? In the end, I think that this doesn't end up, turning into like a Cold War intercom kind of like axis of adversarial to the United States interest type of a complex here. But I do think that it's worth paying attention to.
It's a game played across decades. I think you have to look at it through the lens of tariffs. It's just you have to be thinking about it to some extent. And that's it.
So next geopolitical item. So a week ago, I might have my timing jacked up here, but U.S. Navy and U.S. Coast Guard ships were surged. I'm going to use that loaded term, surged into the Caribbean, positioning in and around the Venezuelan periphery. And then sometime in the last couple of days, there was a targeted U.S. strike on a narco vessel heading toward Trinidad or Tobago or something from Venezuela, killing 11 people and drastically escalating into the public this kind of this new way of throwing weight around the world, and maybe reinforcing that there is actually a bigger problem nearer to our own borders than Ukraine, Russia, or Taiwan, China. And my sense of this is that this is the Trump administration being as serious and as potentially violently serious as they can be in demonstrating that they are serious about immigration issues, drug issues, and other stuff related to the Western Hemisphere and Latin America, as opposed to getting more serious about Ukraine or getting more serious about Taiwan, at least in an overt fashion. But again, maybe I'm reading too much into that or giving them too much credit.
I mean, I think you're right there as far as like moral alignment, and I don't think I have no real moral objections to killing cartel members who are in open water doing cartel stuff. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. However, there's a much stickier legal question, and I would assume that strike is covered in some way under the 2001 AUMAP, that authorization for use of force against terrorists. But I have long had this opinion that the more you use that, the scarier that document becomes, because you can just label whoever a terrorist as the political winds change. And the next thing you know, you're killing people off our shores or on our homeland. Like, what's the difference between a Venezuelan narco terrorist in Texas versus one in open water? Can I just do a drone strike in Texas?
I'm sure that there really is a pretty explicit red line there, but I could be wrong. A bright line of the international waters. I'll be honest, I have no idea. But
yeah, it's a great question. I'm sure there's a lot of legal scholars who are thinking about that to some regard. But
this does make me think that U.S. SOUTHCOM and NORTHCOM, which handles border between U.S. Mexico at some level, that those are entities that are going to be receiving more federal attention, perhaps more federal resourcing. So Dave, you're continuing in an innovation role in uniform at some point. So I'm not asking to speak from a uniform position of authority here, but what are you seeing in terms of like our market getting interested in or energized or resourced to go after NORTHCOM or SOUTHCOM problem sets?
What are the what are the implications to VC-backed defense tech firms when the U.S. when the U.S. strikes a foreign terrorist
We need an
organization?
agentic AI to tell me what's illegal or illegal use of force on which piece of land.
That's right. There you go.
I mean, this happened a day ago or so. I'll be honest, I haven't really seen or heard anything that's more meaningful than, holy cow, did we send 3 destroyers and 5,000 sailors and Marines and then sink this thing with a missile? I think everybody's just sort of digesting that at the moment. I don't know that I've seen any trend lines that are relevant to the defense industrial base.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, it's interesting at a minimum, and I just don't know if it's a trend line that means anything for us in the future. But having taken teams of Marines down into SOUTHCOM AOR to conduct counter narcotics training and backseating of partners in that region, it's a very real thing, right? I mean, the narcos are tied in with the insurgencies that are often present in a lot of these countries, or they're tied directly to the sitting governments of these countries, right? So it's a really complex, weird problem set down there. And I do think that it is tied at some level to the thing Simon was referencing, which is reclassifying Mexican and other South American, Central American drug cartels as terrorist organizations and not just criminal networks.
So then let me walk back my answer, because through that lens, I think for the last 5 years or so, I mean, there was a reason that we chose 7 Special Forces Group as our first, as our first sort of customer focal point, because they're always there, they're always in South America. This South America has been heating up for a while now. We have invested in our nation's ability to project or solve problems down there. And we've built out capability or features in our products that are directly relevant to that AO.
Well, it certainly falls into at least the general reading of the DoD priorities that came down a number of months ago. Do you remember that? It was like, strategic nuclear stuff, Southwest border stuff. I think the Western Hemisphere, the near abroad, to use the Soviet term, is of interest for our government, if not in true geopolitical kind of through the true geopolitical lens. But I think that a lot of this is, I don't mean to cheapen the action, because people's lives were lost and real hard military assets are being deployed. And I'm sure there's, a level of strategic thought behind this that I'm not privy to. But I do think that at some level, this is the Trump administration demonstrating, putting their money where their mouth is about immigration, border, Western Hemisphere, drugs, and other things. This is a way for them to demonstrate that they're serious about the policy proclamations they were making on the campaign trail.
That's what I took from it.
Okay, cool. All right. I think we we squeezed all the juice out of that lemon. Let's see. Venture deal book stuff. So we saw our friends at Vector, Task Force Vector, so this is Andy Yaklis and George Mattis, announce a $61 million financing, which is a pretty big deal, especially given that they are only recently out of stealth. I actually don't know how long they were in stealth. We had some amount of discussion before we hit record about how long they were in that mode before actually launching, but it's a pretty serious enterprise. I know those guys, they're very serious, they're very smart, they're very tied in to actual real problem sets in the world, and they're kind of marketing themselves as a kind of warfare as a service type of a platform, which has to imply some amount of like technology. And these guys think and care a lot about one-way attack, drone platforms. I think they have a platform called Hammer, wire guided, FPV style one-way attack, and a bunch of other stuff. But warfare as a service is also an interesting notion. In other words, this is kind of the blending of a tech company with a private military contractor, at least from my vantage point. And I'm meeting up with George in a couple of weeks. I intend to really dig in with him on what this is all about. And would love to have him or Andy on the podcast, maybe to talk about what Vector is doing. But
also Mountain West based.
quite interested in that. That's right, George. I think, do they run things out of Salt Lake? Am I right about that?
They're down in Utah. They've had some great take up from their congressional reps down there who come and visited their new office. It's good stuff.
Yeah, pretty cool. Also backed by Larson Jensen from Harpoon and a few others that we know about in the network. Pretty interesting. I don't know if you guys have any kind of reflections or initial gut reactions on that kind of a financing or warfare as a service, but it's maybe the one big investment of note in the last week in our sector.
I'm interested to find out what warfare as a service looks like in execution. And I have some thoughts on like what it is as an idea. And I want to be clear, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a really interesting idea. But the devil's in the details when the rubber meets the road. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, same. I think having spoken with them in the some of the formative days before they pressed go and came out of stealth, they were very interested in translating learnings from current conflict zones, but primarily the Ukraine-Russia conflict, translating those into the Western military context. Like, how do we leapfrog ahead and accelerate, the adoption of some technologies, but also tactics and techniques and procedures and a whole range of other stuff. So I'm very keen on what comes next.
Yeah, I engaged with Andy on this topic a while back and thought it was very interesting. And I don't want to go too far, betray any of his, special sauce here for Vector. I think I'm pretty safe in saying it was pretty compelling to me, because what Andy described to me is, hey, Dave, it's very challenging to sell products to the current defense acquisition system. However, it's a lot easier to sell services. So what if you are selling a service that is the best, latest, and great, that includes the best, latest, and greatest products or capabilities with lessons learned from downrange? So I think when people hear Vector, warfare as a service, they're thinking like a bill of, cost per kill. Like, we killed 3 BTR-80s and this other stuff, and here's the bill. I don't think that's what we're talking about. I think we're talking about a unit is able to modernize themselves by calling Vector and saying, just keep the latest and greatest capabilities and tactics, techniques, and procedures coming to my organization, which is compelling.
I'm pretty interested to understand what a contract mechanism would look like in there, because is it a services contract? Are they buying stuff? Is it just some really kind of like high order OTA, or like what is this thing? Like, how can you accommodate that number of different offerings, right?
Yeah, so I think that, if you think about every unit in the U.S. military has services contracts for supporting training events, for modernization, for fielding or training new equipment. Like, there are services contracts of lots of varieties in every division and above, or even brigade and above, across the entire United States, every full burden above across the entire United States military. So he's basically saying, instead of going after your procurement money, I'm going to come and take your services money to support training, modernization, whatever. But we'll have some products that will be there with the the services that are included in the services, which I thought was pretty compelling.
Yeah, very compelling. So maybe to wrap on that topic, two other just newsworthy call outs here. Vector was sued by Red Cat. Red Cat's a company that we historically have had plenty of touch points with. We know those guys. We know Jeff Thompson. We know the Red Cat folks. George Mattis used to be at Red Cat. I have no comment on what the nature of the suit is or anything. I would just say that we're likely to see more litigious activity, I think, as the dust settles around this formative period around defense tech innovation, venture activity in what is increasingly a competitive landscape of new entrants. So I think that's unfortunately not going to be the only suit that we see out there in venture-backed defense tech startup land. And then I'll also say these guys, Vector's got a lot of the big names in defense venture behind them. It wasn't kind of no-name family office investors. This is Harpoon, a known name, Point72, a known name, Lightspeed, a known name, Shield Capital, obviously a known name. We share investors with these guys, and it's a good set, or at least a set of good signals that these guys are doing something compelling. So eager to see what comes next. let's hand the mic off. Simon, not necessarily a GovRel item, but Doug Beck pulled the ejection cord and he's no longer running Defense Innovation Unit. I have my thoughts on it, but why don't you lead off?
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting news, I think, with DIU right now, depending on how excited you are by DIU. But Doug Beck announced his resignation shortly after, and I think most of the folks that I've seen commenting on it shortly after DIU was folded back under USD R&E. The long story short version of DIU is that as it has grown as an organization under R&E, it eventually got pulled out in 2023. So when Doug Beck was brought on, it was specifically to lead DIU as a larger entity that exists outside of the chain of command of USD R&E. So when they reorganized it back under, it seems like that prompted Beck to resign. I think there's a really interesting thing to think about here, which is DIU and a lot of the kind of smaller or clone-ish organizations that exist in this innovation space have this tendency to create operating paradigms under individual leaders that don't always survive. So DIU 3.0 under Doug Beck looked very different from DIU 2.0 under Mike Brown, right? Which looked different from DIU X under Raj. So I think at the minimum, what you're guaranteed to see is a DIU that's going to look very different 6 months from now as it reshapes, which is unusual because we were just starting to hit our stride with 3.0, right? Like, I don't think we really got enough time with this current iteration of DIU to see what kind of fruit it was going to bear. I think we just saw our first article about it's not supposed to be DIU, but it is DIU, Replicator, right? Whether or not Replicator was a success, and now they're trying to measure some of the outcomes from this huge infusion of cash that has happened in the DIU in the past couple of years. It's a lot of upheaval, I think, for the current administration. What you're going to see is a secretary's office that's kind of wrapping its arms around these large amount of resources. You're seeing this across the government. It's not just DOD. But I think what it means is Emil, who's the current head of USD R&E, and then SecDef are going to seize the reins of the billions of dollars that were put into DIU in the last couple of years through congressional action and spend them on the priorities as they see them.
We have reveal level opinions about engaging with DIU. I think it's been an evolving show there. We know that Doug brought with him some amount of democratic leaning sensibility. He had, I think, good connectivity with the Biden administration and the cabinet over there. At kind of first knee-jerk reaction was, oh, this resignation was inevitable, right? You straddle the two administrations, but there's a clock. There's a shot clock for Doug. You can't stand in that room for too long without the loyalty factor coming into play. So sure. I think at some level that's probably in play. But he does now have the benefit of leaving on his own terms and having the two-party kind of dual credibility of having worked for two different administrations under his belt. So at some level, I'm sure there's some amount of political survivability for him as a viable future player.
So I want to say one thing there,
potentially
which
smart
is
politics. Yeah,
that the Doug Beck led iteration of DIU, to the extent that it was championed by any politician, was Chairman Ken Calvert, right? Sure. So more than anything, that was really Chairman Calvert's baby, so to speak, and the mechanism through which that immensely powerful appropriator saw as the opportunity to modernize DoD as quickly as he thought he could.
So this was his hedge, the hedge.
Right. So that original hedge strategy was written by Mike Brown when he was running DIU, or shortly after he left is when he articulated it, a hedge for America.
Sure.
And then Chairman Calvert put pen to paper and created a fund for that hedge for America.
Sure.
And there's a lot of conversation. Chairman Calvert is on what's called a waiver right now to be the chair of HACD. He's been the chair of HACD for too long, per the rules of his party. So there's been a ongoing conversation of when at some point they stop giving him waivers to hold that powerful chairmanship, right? There's other members in Congress who want that opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. So
I mean,
go ahead.
Side note there, with California's redistricting project underway, he's now in a even more hard to win district,
Totally.
out in Riverside County and Palm Desert and whatever else is in his district. So it's
And I'll be the
toughie.
first to say it's a tragedy. There's not a lot of really smart, conversant, passionate members on any topics, right? It's very difficult to be a House member who becomes a true subject matter expert on stuff and also get into a place of power.
Yep.
So it's unfortunate. But yeah, it looks like that's the direction it's headed.
Well, he'll be in the chair for at least another cycle. Is that what you're referencing with the waiver? Like for the
he'll get to run out this Congress. So even if he were to win, even if he were to win re-election, there's a pretty good chance that he would not be allowed to be chairman another go round.
But he'll be around for the next authorization appropriation cycle.
Yep.
Yeah. The FY27 approach.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. We'll be interacting with Chairman Calvert in the next month or so, and maybe we'll have some insights when we come back for pod recording in October, November. Should be interesting. So I think I maybe mixed up the docket or sequence here. Simon, do you want to continue talking Capitol Hill stuff? We want to go back into DoD and go to market stuff with Dave. Where do you want to
go? Well, one thing I do want to say before we move off is in a similar vein of all of these, I don't want to call it innovation theater, but there is certainly a circus of innovation entities spread across DoD. I mean, you can't throw a rock without hitting like 3 different organizations.
That's an amazing term.
I don't want to call it a theater, so I'm going to call it circus. Yeah,
that's
great. My tact.
You don't have to call it a circus, Simon. You don't have to call it defense. You don't have to call it innovation theater. The United States government gave it an acronym: Defense Innovation Community of Entities. DICE.
DICE. Nice. Well, the DICE got maybe smaller.
I like circus.
As the Navy just created the what is the Rapid Capabilities Office? That's probably not what the acronym stands for, but they created the RCO. What's interesting about creating a new one is they killed 3 others. And I think this should be a standing policy across DoD. If you want to make a new defense innovation entity, you must kill at the minimum 2 others, but ideally 3. And
it's like a blood sacrifice.
Exactly. The organizations that were created at the beginning of the GWAT to solve problems still exist, and they just never go away. You just collect kernels and GS-15s. If anything, if there's a failure of the Doge, it's this. I was waiting patiently for Doge to come through with the list of 25 organizations that were created duplicatively on top of each other at DoD.
You were waiting. You were waiting for that?
That was the one I wanted. That was the only Doging that I was like, this is the one. They're going to go find all of Rick Doe's children and just murder them and roll them back.
This is
all right, Dave.
This is amazing. This is amazing.
Intervene, Dave. Intervene.
Because the pendulum just swings back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah.
Well, innovation doesn't happen, under high scrutiny environment. Like get these labs out to the front. Everybody should have one. Like every echelon should have their own innovation shop. Oh, wait, they don't have any authority. They don't have any funding. They're running rampant. No, pull them all back in, centralize them. You can't convince me that the real politics aside, the programmatic reason why you would tuck DIU back up under the Office of the Secretary of Defense or under R&E is because accountability. Hey, what have you done with all this? What have you done with all this money aside from transition and existing COTS capability?
It may major defense accountability. It might just be, hey, I want to spend your money. It could be that simple.
Exactly. Like I will define as the secretary or as the secretary's office. I will define what your organization is going to do with all that money. That's 100% it.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So Dave, lead us into your next topic, because I think this is a different echelon scale, but I know this ties into your favorite movie.
I love this topic. Go
Simon,
ahead.
I can't tell if you and I are going to fight on this one or strongly agree on this one.
I'll do both.
If you have any LinkedIn, if you follow anyone on a LinkedIn in the defense industry, or in the Department of Defense, you will have heard the term 1,000 times in the last 48 hours. JCIDS is dead.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Rest in peace, JCIDS.
So, yeah. Rest in peace, JCIDS, but also long live JCIDS. Long live JCIDS. Because we replaced the JROC with another council, You know, a lot of it looks a lot like JCIDS. However, like I'll give you my take, Simon, that you can probably go to battle with me here. So I do. There are a couple of things that sort of like here. The key operational problem, like let's frame this around the most existential threats to the United States military. The really key capability gaps we need to address. Sure, that's table stakes. Okay, we're replacing the Joint Requirements Oversight Council with another council that looks a lot like a Joint Requirements Oversight Council. But I think that the sentiment of this thing is sending authority, you know, sending authority down a little lower, or attempting to send authority down to the services. Obviously, that gets a little complicated when you're talking about joint capabilities or joint problem sets, because all that stuff has to be able to work together. We can't build a cool thing if it doesn't fit in the Army, if it doesn't fit on the back of an Air Force C-17. But I do like the signaling that we are trying to grant authority and funding at the hardest problems or the biggest problems, and granting authority down to lower echelons. Do you agree?
Hooray.
So, I have thoughts.
How are you going to agree and disagree all in this looming diatribe you're about to unleash on us?
I'm all over the place, as I always am.
Hit it.
And I want to say, first of all, the number one thing that I hate the most about the death of JCIDS is the number of think pieces about the death of JCIDS. And I'm begging everyone to shut up just for a minute. So that's my first thought. My second thought, the thing I love the most about the death of JCIDS is that Dave is correct, and we are going to replace one set of acronyms with a whole new set of acronyms, and I will watch old people struggle with learning their new acronyms, because I don't think that we have killed the requirements process. We just put a new coat of paint on it, as we are often wont to do. This is, Dave, you're right. I mean, it's the pendulum all over again. We're going to swing back and forth. At the end of the day, who gets to spend the money is the thing that matters. And there's a ton of people on LinkedIn in particular who are sounding the bells of how, you know, JCIDS is dead and it's this new golden era. And it's not all of them, but the majority of them have never built or sold anything. And that's the thing that I have found the most common thread, is a lot of people who live in the requirements game are really sounding off about, this is the whole new world is upon us. And I'm like, you don't live in it. Whatever the new world is, you're not living in it. You are a requirements guy. I know you are. And we still have not articulated what requirements 2.0 looks like. So it looks a lot like requirements 1.0.
So I think
long live JCIDS.
But where
long live JCIDS, baby.
I'll be the optimist here. I think where this could eventually lead. It's not there yet. I think where this could eventually lead is the thing that we talked about for a while, which is like, okay, it's too big, it's too bureaucratic, it doesn't work, got it. But for any type of capability set, any type of problem, you could have a mini JCIDS process, right? Where the requirements writers that are reading the national defense strategy and trying to identify the gaps, and the warfighters, the combatant commands, and the shoppers or the acquiring authorities of the DoD are all lumped together, and they are allowed to generate, solve problems, and buy things all within that smaller ecosystem, which theoretically could move faster, right?
Sure. So I want to say JCIDS was created to replace the requirements generation system. And we are already talking about the thing that needs to replace the next thing. So I don't know if this is going to be what it really needs to do, right? Like every single think piece is like, oh, great news, but here's what you really need to do. So
you're telling me I'm part of the problem?
Why are we doing the middle step? Why not just jump to what? No, because you have the answer that I like the most deep in your heart, which is let the Joes do it.
Let the Joes run.
Let the Joes run, baby.
Let the Joes. I completely agree with you there. But I actually don't think. I mean, for our industry, you know, this isn't. I don't think it's a windfall for the smalls. I don't think it's the death of defense primes.
And you've heard my complaint about, especially when it comes to like requirements and resourcing, is that you're going to have these units. They're all going to have a million different things. If you give them too much authority and money. And the longer I make that argument, the less I believe it, because I'm like, you know what? There's already an immense amount of fraud, waste, and abuse. Do I actually care if the Joes also engage in fraud, waste, and abuse? Not if the outcome's better. Not if they're shooting drones out of the sky.
That is what I'm saying is the positive outcome of this is it indicates for me that the next intended step, or maybe then one of the next intended couple of steps, is to grant real authority down to real commanders. Which I hope is the direction we're headed. But hold on. Go
Can
ahead.
you define between what you mean by real commanders? Because we've heard this shift is coming toward endowing and empowering combatant commands. So this is like forward deployed, or are you talking about,
I'm talking.
side echelons?
I'm talking about every general officer or full-bird colonel that is in a command position has authority and funding to procure things that are directly relevant to their medal or their mission. Because that's how fast it goes.
But no lower. So we're talking brigade regiment level and no lower.
I mean, I don't really like. I don't know if we ever gonna have enough contracting officers where like every fire team leader can have the ability to. I think that most of the serious conversation around this has oriented on like the full bird to 1-star.
Well, hold on. Let's imagine that we had unlimited AI enabled contracting officers, right? Like let's just say that's the case. Would you want individual team leaders and squad leaders making equipment decisions? I don't think that's true.
The same place we house all the responsibility, legal authority for what happens if a soldier gets killed on a range are the same places that you should house the authority. So commanders, that's where it should live. Right. Commanders literally an echelon. I don't care if company commander has the authority and funding to procure against their individual mission.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see.
Well, hold on. There's one that's directly related to the death of JCIDS. Are you done on the death of JCIDS, Simon? Because there's another story.
You can never really be done because JCIDS never really dies, Dave. There's another never-ending story that we will continue to revisit for the rest of our lives.
The gravity of the political interest of the giant legacy prime contractors who service the hundreds of billions of dollars of defense spending every year. They're not going to allow the thing to change.
Disagree
too much.
They're happy to let it change because they will win no matter what.
That's what I mean. That is exactly what I mean.
Yeah, they will just shift shape.
But
they'll be fine.
If anything ever bubbled up as like a policy shift that did represent a risk to their bottom line, they would fight it. And they would probably fight it successfully just because of the gravity.
But the most successful way to fight it, I mean, they're not stupid. Like everyone wants to think they're big and slow and dumb. The best way to fight it is to say, "Oh, we're so excited! This is great, guys. Good work." And then you show up, and Army Next Gen C2 has Lockheed Martin winning half of it. And you're like, "Oh,
that's right. Yeah, that's right."
All right.
That's not how I wanted to do it. Like, no, that's how we're doing it, buddy. And that's not to say that Army made a mistake, because I don't think they did. Because the Army, despite what everyone says, has to hedge their bets. So Anduril's a big winner, and Lockheed's a big winner, because they're not going to swing the whole thing, especially not out of the gate, on something untested.
That's right.
No way.
All right, Simon, here's the other one. And I'm just optimistic about this one. So you put on the blue hat, I'll put on the red hat.
All right.
All right. Joint Interagency Task Force 401 counter-UAS.
I tell you right now, you can get rid of it. The name's too long, and we don't need it. Nobody with the name that long is doing good work. You're supposed to be pro Joint Interagency Task Force.
Is that the 50th or the 51st task force aimed at counter-UAS stuff? I just want to know.
Exactly.
It's more serious than any other attempt, right? Joint, real authority, real funding, like ready to spend $50 million out the door yesterday kind of thing. I strongly agree that this is such an important problem to the U.S. military that we should take it very seriously. Every service and every organization, and it probably is truly a joint problem. I am very skeptical because the structure and design of this thing looks a lot like what we did when we were facing IEDs. We did JIDO, like we went through 4 or 5 different acronyms, but we built almost exactly the same thing. We said, this is the problem that is facing the United States military. We were fighting 2 wars on 2 fronts and everybody's getting blown up. And we just pumped billions, I assume, of dollars into technologies. And it was the same situation the counter-UAS is going to be, where the enemy's rapidly innovating as well, so we do, we jam the signal and they go to command wire, and we like build the mine roller and they go to, or we build the V-shaped hull and they go to explosively formed projectiles and so on and so forth. I think
the fiber optic, like wire guided drones.
Exactly. Perfect example. It's a perfect example.
That is
So my fear is, as seriously as we should take this problem, it's such a hard problem. I think that we're going to do the same thing again. I think we're going to spend $1 trillion we're going to rename it 4 times and fire the leadership and hire new people and throw more budget at it. And we're going to spend $1 trillion.
Maybe Doug Beck could lead that. Maybe Doug Beck could lead that one.
You keep using the phrase, Dave, because I refuse to learn the acronym. The JIADF, the JIATSI, what's it? What's the new one?
JCIDS.
The JCIDS. Yeah. Okay.
JCIDS.
Yeah, he could lead JCIDS because it's not going to do anything. He can do whatever he wants. It's basically being retired.
I mean, that would really speak to his McKinsey background. Do nothing.
Brutal. Devastating. Here's the thing, Dave. You already know the answer here. Let the Joes do it, and I have the perfect counterpoint to the JCIDS already. It's ready. It's loaded. It's good to go. And shockingly, it does come from Ricto. It comes from the Ricto fellas, because the Ricto fellas did a little thing called Project Flytrap, and I like Project Flytrap for one very specific reason.
It's got a simple name.
It's got a simple name. First of all, it is what it is, right? Good title. It's letting the Joes do their own counter-UAS. They gave them resources, and they said, Joes, come up with your thing. And the Joes are using 12 different pieces of technology and developing TTPs, because counter-drone is going to be a layered problem, but it's also going to be an adapting problem. You will never be able to buy the big, beautiful battleship that just does it forever.
Oh, no.
So I agree with you. I agree.
Don't give Trump the idea for that name for the next battleship.
Yeah. Everyone should be very afraid. If Donald Trump finds out about the LCS and tries to save it, no one will be more upset than the U.S. Navy. But anyway,
I agree with you. This is like bottom up features and should. And I'm always for like let Joe figure it out.
That's what they should be doing.
None of those, but none of those 13 things that they bought work.
What does work? The 12 gauge shotgun.
That's the problem, right? And the 12 gauge shotgun is a part of what they're doing.
Totally.
Because once again, first of all, in counter drone, there is no golden key right now, right? There's nothing that's like solving that problem. So you need to dump resources onto the Joes who are at the point of the problem, and you need to show up with some smart engineers and folks that can help them articulate the solutions that they see. Because the way you beat these problems that are iterating too fast is you iterate faster. And the Joes can do that better than anybody because they're thinking it through. And you saw it in Ukraine. You see it in Ukraine all the time. You need the people at the edge
or
solving problems.
Or you subscribe to warfare as a service.
No, it's an option. It's an option.
Maybe that. Okay, guys, we're going to run into end of show. My burning question is, what is psychoframe?
Ooh.
So for those just listening, Simon is wearing yet another compelling,
it's a good one.
Gotta ask a question t-shirt. Psychoframe, tell us. The colors are great.
So it's Psychoframe is a band, but it's a reference. The name of the band is a reference to Gundam, which is a Japanese cartoon. I have bad news. I don't actually know that I can recommend that anyone listen to Psychoframe. It's a very specific thing that you already like or you don't. So it's sort of a hard sell, but it's a great shirt. It's got weird colors and it's got Gundam on it. And I love the reference.
I know just by your description that it is not my thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But I also know I have some people in my life whose thing that definitely is.
Maybe. I don't know. There's only maybe 2 people in my entire life that it's their thing. And I know that because I went to the Psychoframe show where I got the t-shirt and I saw the 2 people that I know. So it's a real acquired taste.
Yeah.
But good merch. Well, some good merch.
I think that's all I've got. Shoot. Last word, Dave? You want the last word?
Yeah, Psychoframe sounds awesome. I'm gonna go get a Psychoframe.
It's just a great phrase. It's very Japanese.
Do they have a compact disc for my old truck? That's what I need. I need a CD.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could not tell you if there's CDs available.
Well, on that retro note, we're gonna wrap. Gents, it was a pleasure. Always is. What we didn't talk about, which we might talk about at some length the next week if some stuff gets internally circulated for signatures and release, is a large contract award that we were just given in the last week. And it's exciting. It's exciting stuff. We might talk about how that thing unrolls, or maybe we won't. I don't know. Let's keep the crowd in tension. And maybe that serves as a hook to bring him back next week. We'll see. I don't know. But
I'm going to come with my academic paper on what the death of JCIDS means.
Thank God.
For Simon.
Oh my God. Finally. I hope you just read from it the whole hour together. That's what
I'll play Psychoframe at max volume while you do it.
It's going to be such a good episode next week, everybody. Come back. Academic JCIDS treatment backed up by Psychoframe, and I'll just be shaking my head. Drinking a Rip It, hopefully. All right. Pleasure, gents, as always. We'll see you next week. Everybody out there, follow us, subscribe, leave comments, recommend us to your people, recommend those people, share it with their people, and we'll see you next week. See ya.